It's always weird nga handling this pressure. Everyone handles it at such a young age where nothing is really set yet. Like you don't really know what you want to do yet. And to arrive at that decision at such a early point in your life, it could leave space for a lot of regret.
What advice can you give for young adults that are going through the pressure of having parents telling them what course to take, having that expectation?
Any advice for anyone who's thinking of going to a different path, something that they're set? I feel like it's really showing by example what you want, being ready to have that kind of conflict in your life. Because I feel like you need to take that conflict and feed it into what you really want to be. It's not going to be easy first. It comes to convincing your parent about what you want to do. They want to see conviction, living by example, doing the hard work.
Hello to everyone all over the world. Welcome to Usapang Lockdown, your weekly dose of kwentuhan every Saturday evening. This week we'll be talking about practicality versus passion, choosing your career path and dealing with pressure from family, which is why we are joined by our guest for this week. He is an editor, content manager, and brand strategist. He is a partner at consultancy and publications Monday Off. Let us welcome Lex Celera. Hello, Kuya Lex, and welcome to Usapang Lockdown.
Thanks for having me and inviting me to this thing.
Thank you for giving us the time and your willingness to share with us your story and insights. So, how are you holding up in this lockdown?
I think I'm doing good. And I say I think because I don't know when it's going to end. So, it's a developing thing. But so far, so good work-wise. And I get to spend some time with family, which is also good. Yeah, it's pretty okay so far. We're managing.
That's good to know. And how has your industry changed since the start of the lockdown?
So I currently work in retail for my main job, and it's been really challenging so far. We had to adapt to so many measures because of the current pandemic. So right now, I think we're jumping into the digital transformation for a lot of businesses. We're doing e-commerce, and aside from my main job, I think my other stuff, including consultancy and social media, they've been holding up pretty well. But it's really staggering also with the changes that have been happening all over the world, and it's been impacting not just my work but also my personal life. And I think there's also space na they intermingle in a lot of ways, especially since we work from home.
All right. So, speaking of career path, just a short background so people would know before we go further. Kuya Lex is from a family of doctors. So, we know naman na in this setting in the Philippines, it is very common na if your family is in a certain field, you are expected to do same. So, growing up, was there a time na you felt that you were expected to follow the footsteps of your parents in the medical industry?
Short answer is yes. There was always that feeling that, I had to follow in the footsteps of my parents. We've always had conversations about it when I was younger, what I wanted to be. But there was also, when you're young, you don't really know yet, and you look to your parents for guidance. So what happens is they would tell me, hey, you should be, first it was like being a pilot or something like that. And then now, before or after that, it was so what kind of doctor do you want to be? So it wasn't like a question of do you want to be a doctor or not. And then when I was in college naman and I took up this liberal arts course, they wanted to it's such a weird thing kasi to say that they wanted me to be something and they're asking me to be something. I feel like if you ask my parents, they would give a different answer. But since they're asking me, yes, there was always this feeling being a pilot, doctor, and then lawyer. And then yeah, it's always been there. And it's such a weird thing that I ended up in such a different field. It's a difficult conversation then to have with your parents when it comes to your career path, because I think at the end of the day they're still looking out for you. They just want the best for you. But somehow the way I see it, it feels like when it comes to following your family's footsteps, it skips a generation. So let's say I have a kid, I feel like my kid, hindi niya susundan yung path ko. He or she or they are going to pick maybe going like a doctor or something. And that kind of makes me relieved, to be honest with you.
So, was there ever a time na you felt the pressure that you had to go in the same field, and how did you deal with that pressure?
Oh gosh. Yeah, the pressure was so immense at one point, since it was two things. It was the need to make my parents happy. Of course, like, as a high school kid, and I graduated high school around 14, I think. I didn't know what I wanted to do, basically. So all I wanted to do anyway was to be a good son to my parents. So I had to answer that, like trying to follow my parents' footsteps and be a good kid. And two, to actually find out what my career path was. And at such a young age, like I had no idea what I wanted to be. Like honestly, when I entered college and I tried to fill in the application, it didn't come out the same way. Like I didn't know what I wanted to put. For UST, when I applied, I think I added something about computer engineering, and I even added something about med, just I think just for
Mm.
me to please my parents. And when I applied in other colleges, I would always mix in different courses based on what I wanted at that time, which was oddly enough computers. And then I found out when you take a computer course, it has a lot of math, and I'm super not good at math. And I'm so glad na I figured that out before I entered college. So
Mm.
actually, when I was applying for college, I changed my course application. When I got in, I changed it to this liberal arts course called interdisciplinary studies. So with this course, it basically gives you the freedom to pick any two disciplines that you want, and then you can use that, or you can apply it to make your own, let's say, like own college course. So it's like a pick and choose kind of thing. You can go with anthropology and philosophy and come up with something new. You could go with marketing and psychology, which was a lot of my batchmates did. And I ended up with psychology and literature. And I ended up that way since because literature, I just really like reading books at the time. And I think that was a valid reason to take more courses in reading books. And psychology, although it was an AB, not a BS, I thought it was also a way for me to have my foot in the door when it comes to taking up a med course. So if I decided, hey, if I want to go med, at least I have this background. And I think it was always this consideration that now my parents can get off my back and they don't have to pressure me anymore.
Mm.
Which I didn't. If I had it any other way, I would have taken a different course. But it's always weird nga handling this pressure, since I feel like everyone handles it at such a young age where nothing is really set yet. Like you don't really know what you want to do yet, and to arrive at that decision at such a young point of your life, or such an early point in your life, it could leave space for a lot of regret. And I think there's always a little bit of like that, of some regret with everyone who goes to college or takes up a certain course.
I agree kasi parang in that age, you're just trying to figure out what you want in your life. Hindi mo pa alam kung ano talaga yung path na gusto mo. Siguro there are few na alam na nila yung gusto nila. Pero at that time, most people are still finding what they want. Kaya parang when you say following your passion, parang in a few years, mapapaisip ka. Like, I know some people nga na they follow their passion and like a year before graduating, dun lang nila na-realize na napagod na sila dun sa passion nila na yun. Quit.
Yes. The thing about following your passion for me is, as people, as humans, our passions change also. Like I
Mm-mm. Yeah.
realize, looking at a lot of people right now, I can see that suddenly they're passionate for furniture, they're passionate for interior plants. And it's not just because of the reason that we're stuck at home, but I think they didn't just had the time or the chance to explore that side of their interests. And I feel like when you're young, that's when you have the most freedom to just explore. And I think that kind of pressure to choose a path, a set, a rigid career path, it's scary.
Yeah.
Something that I also realized now, and I wish I knew back then, was that having a job is different from having a career. And it kind of plays into the practicality versus passion kind of thing,
Mm.
because having a job is just for sustaining yourself. Having this idea of a job versus a career, for me, a career doesn't necessarily have to be tied into a certain industry. For me, having a job is about providing for yourself and providing for your family, making sure you guys have 3 square meals a day, having a roof over your head, having clothes on your back, that kind of thing. And I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be tied into career. And for
Mm.
me, career is tied to what you're interested in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, directly related to your passion. Some people, they're passionate about things, but they never make money out of it.
Mm.
There's no monetary aspect with their
Mm.
passions. And that's also very fruitful, I think, since it doesn't make them feel bad when their passion doesn't have any monetary value.
Mm.
It's purely romantic, it's purely sentimental, it's for their own well-being. And I think, yeah, it careers could be the best even if you're not passionate about what you do, or jobs rather. But career for me, it's really enjoyable when it's something that you're having fun with, but also something that you want to be good at. Those are the questions you need to answer when it comes to the job versus career kind of thing. So yeah.
When you decided na di ka magpapadala dun sa pressure of taking up a med course and you wanted to go the other way, what made you firm in your decision not to take up med?
Again, I feel like I never really was firm with them, but I was firm with myself. I could never see myself doing the things my parents did. And it's not a slight against them. It's really more of like a perspective of, I don't think I'm gonna be as happy as they are with what they do. And you know, what happened was I ended up taking some courses in psychology, and what at the end of the day, after I graduated, I knew that it wasn't enough to end up in med. If I had to end up in med, I would have taken more classes. I would have stayed for another year, probably shift. And, you know, actually, I think my parents kind of knew at that point, like third year college, like they knew I wouldn't be joining them in the medical field, mostly because of what I was taking. And I think what happened, I'm not really sure. I just had a talk with my dad, just had a heart to heart talk with my mom when I graduated, or I think fourth year college. And they just asked me, if you didn't want to take up med, what do you want to do? And me being afraid of what they might say if I said something else, I brought in law naman. And then they were like, okay, law sounds kind of good. And then actually I took up forgot what they call it, but it's the UPCAT for UP Law.
Mm.
And I applied for it. I studied for it. I remember buying a law textbook from a Facebook group to, you know, make me feel na I'm gonna take law, like I'm
Mm.
bracing for mess. The funny thing was the textbook that I bought wasn't even the latest edition. So it doesn't, hindi siya
Mm.
bagay.
Updated.
Like, and it wasn't even at that point. Like I didn't have to take that textbook.
Mm.
Yeah, that's also not a good way of being
Mm.
firm to your parents. It's kind of like me sitting on the fence. But honestly, at that point, I actually seriously considered law as a practice, like as something that I would take. But what dissuaded me and what stopped me from continuing it was, one, I failed the UPCAT for UP Law, and two, I would see my batchmates now. Actually, my batchmates now, they just passed the bar. So now they're actual practicing lawyers with the degree. But what stopped me was the rigor of having to take up another 4 years studying.
Mm.
And I couldn't take that anymore. I feel like wala na ako dun. Like I could see myself, I couldn't see myself in that kind of situation. And at the end of the day, the fear of having this grave mistake stopped me or forced me to be upfront with my parents and then just tell them, I think I'll just feel my way out of my career rather than have this set path. Because other than, you know, taking up law or taking up med, it wasn't the actual med or law degree or having that kind of course that scared me, but it was being forced to choose this path that was for me, very strict. Like if you take up law, you're
Mm,
gonna end up as a lawyer. Of course, you can do more, but that's what you're gonna be. That's what you're dedicating years of your life to.
mm,
The same could be said with med. That's why I really respect my brother. I really respect my parents for, going the whole mile with their career path and being so good at it, especially with my brother. He's now, if I'm not mistaken, he's now a resident. It's just seeing it
mm.
side by side. I wouldn't have it any other way.
So, how are you able to convince your parents that you were going to sway your career path from taking up a pre-med course to taking interdisciplinary studies?
Again, I think I could have communicated it better, but going back at that point, I also didn't know what I wanted. Comes to convincing your parents about what you want to do, I think they want to see conviction. And when I talk about conviction, I think it's living by example,
Mm,
or probably just doing the hard work. After college, we had the short vacation, and
mm,
then I came back, and then I realized that I had nothing to do, and that was fun for a week or two. Like I was just at home, like like people in the pandemic right now.
mm,
But sooner or later, I knew that I had to go out to the world, so to speak, and apply for jobs. So I made the resume, I made the LinkedIn that I hadn't touched until a couple of months ago again. For me to convince my parents that I wanted what I did, it took me probably longer than I thought. So just to give some background, my first job was in social media
mm.
for this publishing company, and then I started there like I was on probation, like 6 months. That's all I had to do. And after that, I managed to get into the actual editorial section of that magazine publishing company. And then that's when I really, got the rhythm of it. And that's when I started to enjoy what I was doing. And when they saw that, I think when my parents saw that, that's when I kind of convinced them. Now that you brought up that question, it makes me think, have I really convinced my parents about my job or my career? Since I've been working for 6 years now, and it's still there's always this conversation of with my parents. How am I doing? Am I doing good? But I'm living away from my parents, semi-independent. I'm happy with my job. When I was working still in publishing, and then I had this article in the magazine. I had the actual magazine, and I would bring it home to my parents, and then I feel like that's the kind of conviction that they want to see, like actual physical fruits of my labor that they could share with their amigas and their friends and stuff like that. I'm happy that my dad still has some copies of my old magazine in his clinics. It's not really spoken, like it's not being talked about as much as it's being shown. That's how I see it. And I feel like convincing not just your parents but the people around you that you like your job and you're happy where you are. It's not a one time thing. It's a daily thing that you also have to ask yourself. Beyond pleasing your parents, beyond pleasing your friends, it's also something that you should ask yourself, like, am I happy with what I do? But a big part of it is having the support of your parents with what you're doing. And I feel like I had to earn it. That's the truth. Like you really have to earn the support of the people that you love, just
Mm.
so that they could see that this guy really enjoys what he does.
Pero before stepping into college,
That's how I
how
see it.
how did you convince them that you were going to take this course rather than a pre-med course?
Told my mom and I told my dad, if I take this course, I might also go to med after. Like it wasn't, I don't like to see it as lying, but I like to see it as like sitting on the fence,
Mm,
like imagine the possibilities, that kind of thing. Like, with my course, it was a special case. I had access to all these various disciplines, and I had the ability to choose what I wanted to learn from. And I used that as leverage for me to take that course. If I had it any other way, to tell you the truth, knowing what I like now, I would go full on communication. And I think that would have been a harder conversation to have with my parents. Imagine, I think you understand din naman na, with both of my parents being doctors and my brother also wanting to be a doctor, there's this pressure nga that you have to answer
yeah.
for. and to go against the grain, to tell them no, I want to do this thing, I want to take this course and set my path in a different like way. I don't think I could have handled that conversation if I had it up front. I don't think I could have set a meeting with my parents and tell them I don't want to be a doctor, because I feel like I get where they're coming from, and to tell them that your son doesn't want to be who you are right now, it's hard. It was a slow process, I would
Mm.
say. So I think if I had any advice for anyone who's thinking of going to a different path from something that they're set, I feel like it's really showing by example what you want, and being ready to have that kind of conflict in your life, because I feel like you need to take that conflict and feed it into what you really want to be. It's not going to be easy for sure. Life isn't that easy, and at that stage I feel like it's supposed to be a lesson for everyone who wants to follow their passions or pursue their dreams, to have that kind of difficult conversation.
So, was there ever a time na people doubted the course that you wanted, that you chose, na parang dapat nag-med ka na lang or something like that? And how did you deal with it?
Yeah. I think what happened was after med nga, the comfort word naman was law. And so when I was with my dad and he would introduce me to his friends, he would tell them that this guy, my son, is going to be a lawyer, is going to take up law. And that was the comfort for him. And when I went to publishing, I went to magazine publishing, I didn't take up law. My dad would ask me, so how much are you making? Can you make, is that enough for you? Which it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. And it really made me feel insecure. I had low self-esteem, and it wasn't really a dark time in my life since I was really enjoying what I did, but I wish I could have it in another way. Yeah, super difficult. There was really some doubt from me, from my parents. But what kept me strong was probably all the good times I had. I feel like it's really a give and take. There's some balance to be made talaga with the choices that you make. And that's the compromise that I had to have. Like I knew deep inside my my heart that it would take some time before my parents would approve, and I had to take that risk.
Would you say it is possible for one to be able to do something practical and something they're passionate about at the same time?
Good question. Yes, but I think first off, we shouldn't pressure ourselves to make a career out of our passion. Like what I said earlier, like with career versus job, that kind of thinking. I feel like it's totally fine to have a job that sustains you, and then when you go home, that's when you start tinkering with your own passions.
Mm.
It's something that you need to figure out by yourself. As humans nga, I feel like our passions do change from time to time, and we will get burned out when we realize that our passions won't take us as far as we want to in life or something. We won't realize that though until we get to that point, which is, it's a bummer. It's hard. Practicality, it's a really tough time right now. I think a lot of people had to make compromises with their jobs. People, they might have been unemployed and they're trying to find their own way. They open their own business just to sustain themselves. The issue of practicality, I feel like it's not really an issue. I think everything that we do has to nurture who we are as people, both emotionally and physically, like the monetary value. We can't. It's so hard to ignore it. Like especially right now where people are struggling, we really have to find our own means. But I also think that we don't have to necessarily pick something like we just have to pick something practical, or we have to pick something that's aligned to our passions. With a little bit of thinking, digging deep into who we are, I think there's middle ground between practicality and passion. I feel like it's there. It's just that the truth is, whichever option you choose, you have to really put in the work. Be really hardworking with what you do. At the end of the day, no matter how smart you are or how talented you are, you really have to put in the work.
Yeah, I agree na sometimes we don't really need to make money out of our passion. Kasi parang if we make a career out of our passion, parang in the long run, tayo din yung mapapagod, tayo din yung mababurn out as people. And it's important then to have a balance then. Kasi what is nice about having something practical is that you have a backup plan eh. Kasi like for example, what if things don't really do that well? At least you have something, parang isipin na rin na parang you could still do naman what you're passionate about while doing something practical. Like for example, in work, like you're doing an 8 to 5 work, tapos after naman, pwede ka naman, you can do something you're passionate about, di ba?
Yes. Yes. Going with the 9 to 5 and then thinking about what you're going to do from, let's say, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. It's a completely different thing. Like, I feel like we should let go of having to define ourselves by our job. As humans, we're really multifaceted. We can do what we want. We can engage with different things at the same time. You know, especially right now, like we're stuck at home, especially for people, let's say people in college or people who are trying to enter college. I would say actually someone like you, Jacob, like you're engaging in a lot of things at the same time. Like you don't have to just stick to one thing. You know, we don't have to necessarily define ourselves by what consumes our time the most, but rather like we can just enjoy. And you know, there's a lot of space to just try on different stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Kasi parang hirap din na you put a label into this is practical, this is passionate. Kasi something you're passionate about naman can change throughout time, and something practical can still be your passion in the long run. Baka in the long run, baka it's something na you will love din naman, di ba? So, what advice can you give for young adults or teens that are going through the same pressure of going through the same, having parents telling them what course to take, or having that expectation to follow?
I think, to be honest with you, based on my own personal experience, it was really difficult, you know, get out of that pressure and let go of it. But a lot of it has to do with the internal. A lot of it has to do with what you think other people might think of you. And the first thing really is to let that go. It's hard, but you need to accept that people make compromises in their life that they might not enjoy. But it's something that they have to do. I feel like we really need to adapt and we really need to think about the bigger scope of things. So what am I saying? Am I saying just pursue your passions, or am I saying stick to the practical? I really can't speak for you, the younger generation, but I think what you need to do right now, and the advice that I should have told myself when I was younger, was explore as much things as you want. Like try on different things while you're still young. Figure out what you really want, and then maybe you can find that it might be something sustainable for you to do. You know, Jacob, I really think it's cool that you're having this vlog. I think it's cool that you're doing this kind of interview thing. I don't know if I could have done the same when I was younger, but you know, it's something that I would watch, and it's something that I think you're really good at. So with you, I think keep it up. Hopefully the people who watch this could do the same. Just explore. It doesn't have to be like super good. It doesn't have to be like the best. You don't have to pressure yourself more. Just try stuff out. Maybe do a vlog, make an indoor garden, grow some plants, try farming, write a book, all those kind of stuff. Like those are hobbies, but they might be your passion, and they also might be something that you know could earn you money in the future and could help you, you know, make a solid career. Yeah, really just explore, and you never know what you're gonna end up liking.
I agree, I agree. And there we have it. That is today's episode. Thank you, Kuya Lex, for joining us, and I hope the viewers out there learned something from our kwentuhan today. Kuya Lex, is there anything you would like to promote, social medias or anything?
So I work for a consultancy and publication called Monday Off. So please follow Monday Off at Monday Off PH. We also have a weekly newsletter that currently I'm the person in charge of. Just go to the page and then you'll find there a way to subscribe. Just click the link in our bio. I write stuff every week, every Sunday or Monday. And yeah, you can see more of my writing there. That's it. Thanks again, Jacob.
So ayun, follow nyo yun guys. And there we have it till next week, Saturday at 7 p.m. here at Usapang Lockdown.